Do you like to cook? Personally, it is an activity that traumatized me for a very, very long time. First, because I never learned, and then because I don't have much time. Without wanting to give you too many headless excuses, I am going to tell you one of my favorite culinary stories. Before we continue with the story, do not forget to click on the notification button in order to get notified at every new video posted. Thank you. Before you make me look rude, I'll introduce myself. My name is Deborah, a young computer engineer and entrepreneur at the same time. Today I have my own tech company and I can afford all the chefs I need to prepare my favorite dishes, but that hasn't always been the case. When I think back to the number of disgusting meals that I must have eaten during my youth, being very small, I was not the type to participate in the kitchen with my mom. And above all, I hated the smell of ingredients in contact with my hands. Despite mom's efforts to draw my attention to this art, I never got hooked. Besides, she often used to say this to me: Deborah, it's in your interest to learn. Tomorrow you'll be a mother and will have to feed your husband. And each time I would answer to her by saying, Mom, I will be too rich to be stuck in a kitchen. After years of repeating the same speech to me, Mom finally got tired of chasing after me. But on the other hand, I always was very smart. I excelled in science and especially math. I had immeasurable passion for computers and everything related to new technologies. And this is another topic that caused a lot of controversy at home with my parents. Dad held a speech by which he tried to dissuade me by telling me that technology was not very feminine. He also put a point of honor in telling me to take a more feminine profession, more to the fact that I was the only girl that he ever had. For him, I was a princess who had the obligation to be pampered and taken care of. It was more important to him that I remained delicate, but I didn't care. I was more driven by my passion and the desire to accomplish feats in terms of technology and innovation. I even remember a dress he bought for me on my 15th birthday, but I didn't wear it because I had to participate in a science competition the same day. It had deeply shocked him that I was not interested in such a feminine and sumptuous garment. It could have resulted in a sermon, but fortunately for me, I had won the competition. My victory had released me from the potential punishment. Once I arrived at home with my trophy in my hands, I received congratulations from Dad, but I could see that he was still disappointed on his face with his famous dress that I hadn't worn. Instead, he had a full view of the satisfaction that I held of the trophy that I won only by the power of my knowledge. Dad that day, despite his intentions to have an ultra-feminine daughter, ended up understanding that he had to let me devote myself to what lit my spirit on fire. So I got the green light from there to be able to devote myself to my passions that day. Now I was no longer pressured by mom or dad to conform to the diktat of femininity as you would see in the books of the 50s. I was going to first grade that year, and as you will have imagined, I chose the scientific series. My distant family thought that I would end up becoming a pediatrician or a gynecologist, since this was a specialization cut for a gentle and understanding woman. And out of politeness, when they put their career proposals to me, when I got my high school certificate, I didn't bother to contradict them and make them understand exactly the course of what I was going to choose in university. Not only because I didn't want to offend anyone, but also because deep down I had the firm conviction that I had nothing to prove to anyone apart from myself. So why ask for validation from people who would never live the career I dreamed of for me? Once at university, everything was clear in my head. I wanted to join the technology industry, so I could only go to Polytechnique to learn what would lead me to my destiny. Everything was going pretty well during the first months of study. The subjects were rather easy. I had no problem with mathematics and learning how to code. Everything was walking on wheels until I met Frank. He too was a student in my faculty, but he was not very smart. He was the kind of guy that all the girls fell in love with, but that was it. What brought us closer was the fact that he had come to me one day asking me to help him study, since I was one of the best in my class. If not the best. I didn't find any downside to it, and it was from that day that we started meeting thrice in a week to revise. As I approached him, I realized that despite his superficial side, he was rather a nice boy. With him, I was able to talk about just everything. Over the time, we no longer hung out only to study, but from time to time, there were movie outings and picnics as our relationship evolved on other bases. A few months later, as you imagined, we became a couple. Besides, it was a surprise for my other classmates, who in their minds imagined me rather studious and focused. Despite everyone's opinion, I only had eyes to Frank, to the point where his opinion had become capital for me. I wanted to look beautiful for him, so I started to wear makeup, dress like a little more provocative, and talk like him. He understood very quickly that he had power over me and wanted to abuse it. Now he demanded that I cook for him, that I go to his dormitory twice a week to do his laundry and clean up, in addition to taking care of his homework, things that with my parents I would have never done. But what do you want? I was in love. I did them without complaining. Veiled by the crush I had on him, I didn't realize that I was being completely fooled by this young man. Plus, his hold on me ended up having a detrimental effect on my grades in college. My general average dropped since I no longer had time to devote myself to my homework and study. I also started to have low self-esteem. I swore by Frank and I sought his approval at all costs before doing anything. I was absolutely miserable. I constantly refused to cook with mom and found myself fighting for someone who in return served me disrespect and lies. I had totally forgotten the very essence of coming to the university. In the end, I failed my second semester, something that was completely unimaginable coming from a girl as smart as me. Depressed, I confided in my mother when I returned to my family during holidays. She and I had a very deep conversation and she reminded me of how determined I used to be. She reminded me how during my childhood, I used to be stubborn to the point of categorically refusing to learn how to cook because I had other passions. I admit that it woke up in me the feeling of liberation that I had needed for so many months. Not to say that any woman who wants to feel liberated should hate how to cook, but it just reminded me of who I was inside and how unconventional my personality was and how that personality was so beautiful and strong that it didn't need to seek for anyone else's approval to exist. This realization pushed me to continue the conversation with mom, who did not stop mentioning emblematic and historical figures who had the strength and character that I did years back and managed to accomplish great things. I came out of this conversation boosted and grown. The days that followed, I did not leave my mom one step. We went shopping together to chase away my grief. Back at the university, I took my courage in both hands and broke up with Frank. I didn't need to feel accepted by him to be a real woman. I resumed my studies seriously and I ended up climbing the slope compared to the disastrous results of my first semester. This relationship with the narcissist allowed me to refocus on myself and to clarify the objectives that I had set for myself a few years earlier in relation to my ambitions to become one of the best in tech and in my country. I finished valedictorian for my master's degree years later, and today I am a business manager for a tech company. Despite this, the only thing I took away from this disastrous relationship was the love of chic and beauty. To this day, I still don't like cooking, but that doesn't stop me from being a fulfilled and rich woman, as I promised to my mom. And by the way, I ended up cooking up success with a recipe full of confidence and self-love.